Welcome to another episode of the Bootcamp. I'm joined today with Richard Cowan of Cannabis Science Incorporated, also former National Director of NORML and head of the Dispensary Defense Group. Dick, thanks again for joining me. So I wanted to talk about Mexico today, and that's kind of like Americans' forgotten neighbor and really the victim in the war on drugs. And could you explain a little bit about where Mexico fits in on our drug policy?
Well, Mexico is literally caught in the middle in the sense that it is a middleman, particularly on cocaine, which primarily comes out of Colombia and the other Andean areas, but it is the shortest route, the most convenient route into the United States. Obviously, it comes through Mexico. The border was, for a very long time, still is to a large degree, very porous. And so Mexico is a conduit for cocaine, but it supplies probably 40–50% of the marijuana consumed in the United States is grown in Mexico. And that accounts for the bulk of the dollar volume. They estimate 50–60%. But it is, in terms of the physical volume, it's probably 90% or more. If you look at the seizure data, for example, at the border, that marijuana is generally speaking measured in tons, whereas everything else is measured in pounds.
Sure.
And in the case of heroin, actually very few pounds is really remarkable. We've also have done the dubious favor of pushing meth production into Mexico, but that's a much more recent phenomenon that has had its negative effects in the U.S. as well, because it's meant that we get more potent speed out of Mexico than we used to get out of the States. But in terms of the violence in Mexico and the corruption, marijuana accounts for probably, as I say, maybe 90% of the physical volume, which means that that's where most of the conflict is, simply because people come into, you have more people involved in moving marijuana, both through the country and then up to the border and then across the border, and so your opportunities for violent conflict are much greater there. And as a consequence, we have thousands upon thousands of people killed in the drug war violence in Mexico, and it is having the effect of destabilizing the country and seriously damaging the economy. And that, even if we didn't care about our Mexican neighbors, we need to care about the effect it's having on the United States, because it is a very bad thing for the United States for Mexico to be destabilized, and for the economy of Mexico to be weakened, because unless you want, of course, more illegal aliens up here, who would be coming up here in larger numbers, desperate not just for jobs, but fleeing for their lives.
So the only answer is legalization?
The only answer, particularly for marijuana, is legalization, because the other day, there was a Mexican debating on this subject, said that decriminalization of simply possession is the worst thing for Mexico, because that will increase the demand, but it will leave the supply in the black market. And so that we have to move the supply of marijuana out of the black market.
Kind of like what we have to do here?
Yeah, that's a coincidence.